The laughter stopped like someone had pulled the plug on a jukebox. 1 second, Elvis was bent over, tears streaming down his face from one of Charlie Hodge's dirty jokes. The next, he was standing perfectly still, color draining from his face like water from a tub. Red West stood in the doorway of the International Hotel dressing room, his mouth half open, clearly wishing he could take back what he had just said. Behind Elvis, 5 members of the Memphis Mafia froze mid-conversation. Jerry Schilling's cigarette burned forgotten between his fingers. Joe Esposito set down his drink without taking a sip. "What did you just say?" Elvis's voice came out strange, like someone was squeezing his throat. Red shifted his weight. "There's a woman on the phone. Says she's Gladys. Says she needs to talk to you about Jesse." The silence that followed was so complete, you could hear the ice settling in Joe's abandoned whiskey glass. Elvis stood there for 7 full seconds, not breathing, not blinking, just staring at Red like he had spoken in tongue. Gladys Love Presley had been dead for 18 years, 4 months, and 5 days. "Get out!" The words came out quiet, almost gentle, but everyone knew that tone. When Elvis spoke that soft, you moved fast. The Memphis Mafia filed out without a word, leaving Elvis alone with a ringing phone on his dressing table. The phone rang 8 times before he picked it up. His hand shook so badly he nearly dropped the receiver. When he finally brought it to his ear, he could not speak. He just listened to the sound of someone breathing on the other end. "Satinin?" The voice was wrong. Too young, accents all wrong. Nothing like his mama's Alabama drawl. But that word, that one word that no one outside his childhood home in Tupelo had ever heard. His mama's secret name for him, made up when he was 3 years old and afraid of the dark. Elvis's legs gave out. He sat hard on the velvet couch, still gripping the phone like it might disappear. "Who is this? Baby? You have been looking for me for 18 years. At December 19th, 1976, Las Vegas, Nevada. 6 hours earlier, Elvis Presley had walked into the International Hotel feeling something he had not felt in years. Energy. Real energy, not the artificial buzz from the pills. His hands were steady. His voice during sound check had been clear and strong. Even the boys had noticed. "You look good, boss," Sonny West had said, and he meant it. Elvis had dropped 12 pounds in the last month. His eyes were clearer. He had actually slept 6 straight hours the night before without waking up screaming her name. But they did not know about the letter. Nobody knew about the letter. Exactly 1 year ago, on this precise date, December 19th, 1975, a manila envelope had appeared under his suite door at 3 in the morning. No postmark, no return address. Security swore nobody had been in the hallway. The cameras showed nothing but an empty corridor. Inside was a single piece of paper, handwritten in blue ink. The writing was shaky, like someone very old or very sick had struggled to form each letter. It said only this: "1 year from tonight, I will call. Be ready to hear what you were never supposed to know. Jesse is waiting." Elvis had burned the letter in his bathroom sink at 4 in the morning, watching the paper curl and blacken until nothing remained but ash. Then he had flushed the ash down the toilet and told no one. Not the Memphis Mafia, not Linda Thompson, not even his daddy. But he had not been able to forget those words. Jesse is waiting. For 12 months, that phrase had lived in his head like a song he could not stop humming. Jesse Garin Presley, his twin brother, born dead 35 minutes before Elvis entered the world. Fulvius entered the world. His mama had held Jesse's tiny body for 2 hours before they took him away. She had sung to him, kissed his forehead, memorized his face. Elvis had grown up seeing that empty space at every dinner table, every birthday, every Christmas morning. Now preparing for his show, Elvis found himself doing what he had done every night for the past year, checking his watch, looking at the phone, waiting for something he told himself would never come. You expecting a call. Joe Esposito had noticed because Joe noticed everything. Elvis had turned away, adjusting his belt buckle, someone who cannot call. The first half of the show was magic, pure magic like the old days. Elvis hit every note, every move, every gesture with precision and power. The audience of 3,000 was on their feet from the opening bars of CC Rider. Women were crying. Men were shouting. The energy in the room was electric, dangerous, barely controlled. Halfway through Suspicious Minds, something changed. Elvis was mid-spin when he stopped so suddenly that the band played 3 more bars before realizing something was wrong. He stood center stage, head cocked like a dog hearing a whistle. The audience went quiet, confused. "Did you hear that?" Elvis said into the microphone, but he was not talking to them. His eyes were focused on something beyond the spotlight, past the back of the room. Did anybody else hear that? James Burton looked at Glenn D. Hardin. The piano player shrugged. Nobody had heard anything. Elvis stood there for 10 more seconds, the sweat on his face catching the stage lights. Then he seemed to snap back into focus. "Sorry, folks. Thought I heard." He never finished the sentence. Instead, he launched into "Can't Help Falling in Love," 2 songs early, throwing off the entire set list. But his voice was different now. Distracted, his eyes kept drifting to stage left, toward the corridor that led backstage, toward the dressing room, toward the phone. When the curtain finally dropped at 10:15, Elvis did not take his usual bow. He walked straight off stage, past the Memphis Mafia, past the backup singers, past everyone calling his name. He walked like a man in a trance, and nobody dared follow him. 3 minutes later, Red West found him standing in the dressing room, still in his sweat-soaked jumpsuit, staring at the phone on his dressing table. It was ringing. "How long has it been ringing?" Elvis asked without looking up. "I just got here." "Elvis, the switchboard says no calls have come through. This phone has not." The ringing stopped. Elvis lunged for the receiver, but his hand froze an inch above it. Red watched his friend's face cycle through emotions like a slot machine. Fear, hope, anger, grief, and something else. Something Red had never seen on Elvis's face before: terror. "Answer it," Elvis said. "Boss, I do not think." "Answer the goddamn phone, Red." Red West had been Elvis's bodyguard for 16 years. He had seen Elvis at his best and his worst. He had never heard him sound like this. Like a little boy lost in a department store, calling for his mama. Red picked up the phone. "Hello?" The silence on the other end was complete. Not even breathing. Just a void where sound should be. Then, just as Red was about to hang up, a woman's voice said 5 words that made his blood turn to ice water. "Tell Satnin, I am waiting." Red's hand went numb. The phone fell bouncing off the table before dangling by its cord. He looked at Elvis, his mouth working but no sound coming out. When he finally found his voice, it came out as a whisper. "She said to tell Satnin she is waiting." That was when the laughter died. That was when Elvis sent everyone away. That was when he picked up the phone and heard a voice that knew things only the dead should know. The woman on the phone was crying now. Not sad tears, happy tears. The kind of tears that come when you finally get to say something you have been holding inside for years. "Baby, I know this voice is not mine. This body is not mine. But you have to listen to what I am saying, not how I am saying it. You remember when you were 4 years old and you hid under the porch because Daddy was drunk again? You remember what I told you?" Elvis could not breathe. Nobody knew about that. Not even Vernon knew Elvis had been under that porch, listening to his parents fight about money they did not have and dreams that would never come true. His mama had found him there at 2 in the morning, pulled him out, held him while he shook. "I told you that someday you would sing so pretty the angels would stop to listen. You remember that, Satnin? You remember how I made you promise never to tell Daddy I said that?" The receiver was slippery with sweat. Elvis switched hands, wiping his palm on the white jumpsuit. "How do you know this?" "Because I was there, baby. I am always there. But tonight is different. Tonight, I can finally tell you what I could not tell you when I was dying. What has been eating me up for 18 years on the other side." Outside the dressing room, Joe Esposito pressed his ear against the door. He could hear Elvis talking, but not the words, just the tone. Broken, lost, like a child. "Boss has been in there 40 minutes, Lamar Fike whispered. "Should we go in?" Joe shook his head. Whatever was happening in that room, interrupting it might destroy what was left of Elvis Presley. Inside, Elvis had moved to the floor. He sat with his back against the couch, knees pulled up. The phone cord stretched to its limit. The woman was telling him things nobody could know. The scar on his shoulder from when he fell off his bicycle at age 6. The nightmare he had every night for a month after seeing a dead bird in the yard. The way his mama would trace letters on his back when he could not sleep, spelling out ILOVEYOU over and over until he drifted off. "Now I need you to listen real careful," the woman said. Her voice had changed, yet harder, more urgent. What I'm about to tell you is going to hurt worse than anything you have ever felt. But you need to know. You deserve to know. Know what? About Jesse. The name hit Elvis like a physical blow. He pressed his free hand against his chest, feeling his heart slam against his ribs. Jesse died. He was born dead. No, baby. Jesse was born alive. He lived for 14 minutes. The room tilted. Elvis grabbed the couch to steady himself. That is not true. Mama told me. I told you what Vernon told me to tell you. What Vernon made me believe. But 3 weeks before I died, a nurse came to see me. Dorothy Hutchinson. She was dying herself, cancer eating her up from the inside. She could not go to her grave with what she knew. Elvis was shaking now, his whole body vibrating like a guitar string wound too tight. What did she know? Jesse was born first, like everyone said. But he was not dead. He was different. The doctor saw it right away. His head was wrong-shaped. His eyes were not right. The doctor told Vernon the baby would never walk, never talk, never be anything but a burden. No, Vernon was 20 years old, dead broke, already owing money to half of Tupelo. The doctor told him there was a state place in Jackson where they took babies like that. Said he could make it all go away for $40. Say the baby was born dead. No shame, no burden, no questions. Elvis dropped the phone. It clattered against the marble floor. He could hear the woman's voice still coming through, tinny and distant, but he could not pick it up, could not move. Vernon, his daddy, the man who had cried every January 8th, visiting Jesse's grave, leaving flowers for his dead son. After 30 seconds, Elvis picked up the phone. His hand was steady now, deadly steady. You are lying. Dorothy Hutchinson worked at the Mississippi State Hospital for the feeble-minded in Jackson. That is where Vernon sent Jesse. She remembered because Jesse was the youngest baby they ever took. 14 minutes old. They named him John Davidson. Generic. Forgettable. Just another broken child in a place full of broken children. My mama would never. I did not know, baby. Vernon came back with a dead baby to bury. But it was not Jesse. It was another baby, born dead that same night to a mother who died giving birth. No family to claim him. The doctor made the switch. I held that baby, thinking it was Jesse, kissed him, sang to him, buried him. Elvis stood up suddenly, the phone cord pulling tight. If this is true, where is Jesse now? Silence. Then so quiet he almost missed it. Jesse died in 1952. He was 17 years old. The sound that came out of Elvis was not quite a scream, not quite a sob. It was something primal, something that had been trapped inside him since birth. He grabbed the whiskey bottle from his dressing table and threw it against the wall. The explosion of glass and alcohol made everyone outside jump back from the door. 17, the woman continued. Never learned to walk, but he could crawl. Never learned to talk, but he would hum. The nurses said he loved music, would calm down when they sang to him. To him? Mississippi State Hospital had a fire in 1953, destroyed most of the records, but Dorothy kept copies. She showed me photos. Photos! The word came out strangled. He looked just like you, baby. Exactly like you if you had been born broken. Same eyes, same mouth, same dark hair. The nurses called him Johnny. He died alone, middle of the night pneumonia. They buried him in the hospital cemetery. Plot 247. No headstone. Just a concrete marker with JD and his dates. Elvis was destroying the dressing room now. Systematic. Methodical. The mirror first, his fist going through it in a shower of silver. Then the makeup table flipped over, cosmetics scattering like confetti. The couch cushions ripped open, stuffing floating in the air like snow. 3 weeks, the woman said. I had 3 weeks after Dorothy told me. 3 weeks of knowing my baby boy lived 17 years in that place while I sang to an empty grave. 3 weeks of keeping it from you because I could not bear to have you hate your daddy the way I hated him. You should have told me. You were already losing me. My liver was failing. You were 23 years old and watching your mama die. Die? Could I add this to that? How could I tell you that your twin brother, the one you talked to every night, the one you felt beside you all your life, had been real and suffering and alone? Elvis found himself at the door, not remembering walking there. His hand was on the knob, but he could not turn it. On the other side, he could hear his boys breathing, waiting. Does Daddy know you knew? I never told him, but he suspected. The last week, he kept asking why I would not look at him. Why I would not let him touch me. I think he was relieved when I died. No more waiting for the truth to come out. I need proof. Check the Mississippi State Hospital records. What is left of them? Check the Tupelo courthouse for death certificates dated January 8, 1935. 2 baby boys died that day, but only one birth was recorded as a death. Ask Vernon about the $40 he borrowed from his brother and never paid back. Ask him why he really went to prison in 1937. Not for forging a check, for threatening the doctor who delivered you when the man tried to blackmail him. The doorknob was cutting into Elvis's palm from how hard he was gripping it. Why now? Why tonight? Because you are running out of time, baby. You have 8 months left, 8 months to make this right, to give Jesse the recognition he never had, to tell the world he existed, to force Vernon to admit what he did. Do you know about 8 months? The same way I know about Jesse, the same way I know about the pills you took an hour ago, the same way I know about the gun in your boot, the dead no things, Satinin. We see the threads connecting everything. Everything. And your thread is almost cut. Elvis opened the door. The Memphis Mafia stumbled back, caught off guard. His face was bleeding from the mirror glass. His knuckles were raw. The white jumpsuit was torn at the shoulder, but his eyes were what scared them, empty. Like someone had reached inside and turned off whatever light had been there. Get my daddy on the phone, he said to Joe. Tell him I know about Jesse. Tell him he has 1 hour to get here, or I tell the world everything. He looked back at the phone, still off the hook, the woman's voice still coming through like a ghost radio signal. Then he walked past his boys, past the security guards, past everyone, heading for the parking garage. Where are you going? Joe called after him. Elvis did not turn around. To find my brother's grave. The desert looked black under the December moon. Elvis drove his Stutz Blackhawk at 90 miles per hour down Highway 95, the speedometer climbing toward 100. No security, no Memphis Mafia. Just him and the voice in his head that sounded like his dead mother, asking why Vernon never cried at Jesse's funeral. 23 miles outside Vegas, the car ran out of gas. Elvis let it coast to a stop on the shoulder, then sat there in the sudden silence. No traffic, no light, nothing but desert and stars and the kind of quiet that makes you hear your own blood moving. He got out and started walking. The pills were wearing off now, the adrenaline too. His legs felt like water, but he kept walking into the desert, following no path, just moving away from the road, away from the lights of Vegas glowing on the horizon like a false sunrise. After 10 minutes, he found a cluster of rocks and sat down. This was where Joe Esposito found him 14 hours later, still sitting on the same rock, having written 17 pages in a notebook he had pulled from the car. The writing was frantic, sometimes illegible, words crashing into each other like cars on black ice. Mama, I know what you carried. I know why you stopped singing. I know why you would stare at nothing for hours. You were seeing him. You were seeing Jesse in that place, wondering if he knew lullabies, if someone held him when he cried, if he died knowing he had a brother who became everything Vernon wanted him to be. Joe tried to get Elvis back to the car, but Elvis pushed him away. Not violent, just firm. The way you move someone aside at a funeral when you need to see the body. Did you reach Vernon? Joe nodded. He collapsed when I told him. Had to call an ambulance. He is at Sunrise Hospital. Elvis laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. Of course he collapsed. 41 years of carrying that secret, and his heart finally said enough. Back at the International Hotel, the Memphis Mafia had assembled in crisis mode. Colonel Parker was there, pacing, calculating the damage. The hotel management wanted answers about the canceled show. 3,000 people had waited 2 hours before being told Elvis would not return. But Elvis walked past all of them, straight to his suite, where he made 3 phone calls. The first was to a private investigator in Jackson, Mississippi. Find everything about the Mississippi State Hospital for the feeble-minded. Every record, every employee list from 1935 to 1952, every grave in their cemetery. The second was to his lawyer. Want Vernon Presley removed from all financial accounts immediately. The third was to a number in Tupelo that had not been dialed in 20 years. Dorothy Hutchinson answered on the first ring, like she had been waiting. You told her, did you not? Elvis said without introduction. You told my mama about Jesse? The old woman's voice came through weak but clear. I told her the truth. She deserved to know. Tell me everything. Dorothy Hutchinson had worked the night shift at Mississippi State Hospital from 1934 to 1968. She remembered every child who came through those doors, but she remembered Jesse most of all. Not because of who his family was. She had no idea about the Elvis connection until years later. She remembered him because of his eyes. Most babies born with those problems, their eyes are empty. But Jesse's eyes were so alive, alert, like he was trapped in a body that did not work, but his mind was all there, trying to get out. She told Elvis about Jesse's 17 years, how he learned to pull himself along the floor with his arms, how he would rock back and forth when music played on the radio. Though he had one nurse, Betty Morrison, who would sneak him extra food, sing to him, treat him like he mattered. Betty was with him when he died. Middle of February 1952, the pneumonia took so many that winter. No heat in those wards, just rooms full of forgotten children coughing themselves to death. Elvis wrote down every word, every detail. The notebook filled up, so he started writing on hotel stationery, napkins, anything he could find. Did he ever say anything? Any words at all? Dorothy was quiet for so long Elvis thought she had hung up. Then, one word. Betty swears she heard him say it clear as day, right before he died. He said, "Brother." The sound Elvis made was not human. Joe Esposito, listening from the other room, would later describe it as the sound of something breaking that could never be fixed. Like watching a building collapse from the inside, Vernon Presley was awake when Elvis arrived at the hospital. Tubes in his nose, monitors beeping. His eyes tracked Elvis as he entered, but he did not speak. Could not speak. The mild heart attack had affected his speech, though the doctors said it would return. "Where are you going?" Joe called after him. Elvis did not turn around. "To find my brother's grave." The desert looked black under the December moon. Elvis drove his Stutz Blackhawk at 90 miles per hour down Highway 95, the speedometer climbing toward 100. No security, no Memphis Mafia. Just him and the voice in his head that sounded like his dead mother, asking why Vernon never cried at Jesse's funeral. 23 miles outside Vegas, the car ran out of gas. Elvis let it coast to a stop on the shoulder, then sat there in the sudden silence. No traffic, no light, nothing but desert and stars, and the kind of quiet that makes you hear your own blood moving. He got out and started walking. The pills were wearing off now, the adrenaline too. His legs felt like water. But he kept walking into the desert, following no path, just moving away from the road, away from the lights of Vegas glowing on the horizon like a false sunrise. After 10 minutes, he found a cluster of rocks and sat down. This was where Joe Esposito found him 14 hours later, still sitting on the same rock, having written 17 pages in a notebook he had pulled from the car. The writing was frantic, sometimes illegible, words crashing into each other like cars on black ice. "Mama, I know what you carried. I know why you stopped singing. I know why you would stare at nothing for hours. You were seeing him. You were seeing Jesse in that place, wondering if he knew lullabies, if someone held him when he cried, if he died knowing he had a brother who became everything Vernon wanted him to be." Joe tried to get Elvis back to the car, but Elvis pushed him away. Not violent, just firm. The way you move someone aside at a funeral when you need to see the body. "Did you reach Vernon?" Joe nodded. "He collapsed when I told him. Had to call an ambulance. He is at Sunrise Hospital." Elvis laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. Of course he collapsed. 41 years of carrying that secret, and his heart finally said enough. Back at the International Hotel, the Memphis Mafia had assembled in crisis mode. Colonel Parker was there, pacing, calculating the damage. The hotel management wanted answers about the canceled show. 3,000 people had waited 2 hours before being told Elvis would not return. But Elvis walked past all of them, straight to his suite, where he made 3 phone calls. The first was to a private investigator in Jackson, Mississippi. Find everything about the Mississippi State Hospital for the feeble-minded. Every record, every employee list from 1935 to 1952, every grave in their cemetery. The second was to his lawyer. Want Vernon Presley removed from all financial accounts immediately. The third was to a number in Tupelo that had not been dialed in 20 years. Dorothy Hutchinson answered on the first ring, like she had been waiting. "You told her, did you not?" Elvis said without introduction. You told my mama about Jesse? The old woman's voice came through weak but clear. I told her the truth. She deserved to know. Tell me everything. Dorothy Hutchinson had worked the night shift at Mississippi State Hospital from 1934 to 1968. She remembered every child who came through those doors, but she remembered Jesse most of all. Not because of who his family was. She had no idea about the Elvis connection until years later. She remembered him because of his eyes. Most babies born with those problems, their eyes are empty. But Jesse's eyes were so alive, alert, like he was trapped in a body that did not work, but his mind was all there, trying to get out. She told Elvis about Jesse's 17 years, how he learned to pull himself along the floor with his arms, how he would rock back and forth when music played on the radio. Though he had one nurse, Betty Morrison, who would sneak him extra food, sing to him, treat him like he mattered. Betty was with him when he died. Middle of February 1952, the pneumonia took so many that winter. No heat in those wards, just rooms full of forgotten children coughing themselves to death. Elvis wrote down every word, every detail. The notebook filled up, so he started writing on hotel stationery, napkins, anything he could find. Did he ever say anything? Any words at all? Dorothy was quiet for so long Elvis thought she had hung up. Then, one word. Betty swears she heard him say it clear as day. Right before he died, he said, "Brother." The sound Elvis made was not human. Joe Esposito, listening from the other room, would later describe it as the sound of something breaking that could never be fixed. Like watching a building collapse from the inside, Vernon Presley was awake when Elvis arrived at the hospital. Tubes in his nose, monitors beeping. His eyes tracked Elvis as he entered, but he did not speak. Could not speak. The mild heart attack had affected his speech, though the doctors said it would return. Elvis pulled a chair next to the bed and sat down. For 5 minutes, neither of them moved. Father and son, locked in a silence 41 years in the making. Dorothy told me everything, Elvis finally said. About the $40, about the doctor, about the other baby you buried in Jesse's place. Vernon's eyes filled with tears, but Elvis continued, voice flat, emotionless. 17 years, Daddy. He lived 17 years in that place, alone, no family, no name except the fake one you gave him. Did you ever think about him? Did you ever think about him? Did you ever wonder if he was cold or scared, or if he knew somewhere out there he had a twin brother who got to live the life he should have had? Vernon's mouth moved, but no sound came out. His hand reached for Elvis, but Elvis pulled away. Mama knew for 3 weeks before she died. 3 weeks of carrying your secret. It killed her faster than the hepatitis. The weight of knowing her baby had been alive, had been suffering, had died thinking nobody loved him. The monitors started beeping faster. A nurse came in, but Elvis waved her away. I am not going to tell the world, not because you deserve protection, but because it would destroy what Jesse never got to have. Dignity, privacy, a story that belongs to him, not to the newspapers. Elvis stood up, looked down at his father, this man who had controlled his money, his career, his life for 35 years. But you and I are done. When you get out of here, you go back to Graceland, you pack your things, and you find somewhere else to live. You will keep getting your money because that is what Mama would want. But you are no longer my father. You are just the man who killed my brother twice. Once when you sent him away, and again when you let him die forgotten. Vernon's hand clutched at the bed rail. His mouth formed a word. Sorry. Elvis leaned down close enough that only Vernon could hear him. Jesse said brother when he died. His last word. He knew I existed. Somehow he knew. And I will carry that for whatever time I have left. However many months or years, I will carry knowing my twin died calling for me, and I was not there because you decided he was not worth $40. Walking out of that hospital room was the last time Elvis saw Vernon conscious. Though Vernon recovered from the heart attack, lived until 1979, the two never had another real conversation. They spoke through lawyers, through intermediaries, through carefully orchestrated family gatherings where they stood on opposite sides of the room. But the real damage was what happened to Elvis after that night. He hired investigators who found the grave, plot 247, just like the woman on the phone had said. A concrete marker with JD 1935, a 1952, carved rough, like someone had done it with a screwdriver. Elvis had a proper headstone made. White marble. It read, Jesse Garon Presley, beloved son and brother, finally found. The cemetery had no record of anyone named John Davidson. The state hospital records were genuinely destroyed in the 1953 fire. But Elvis found 3 former nurses who remembered a boy who looked like him, who hummed when music played, who died alone in the middle of a February night. He set up a foundation that nobody knew about until after his death. Every month, money went to institutions caring for disabled children in Mississippi. The checks came from a company called Twin Star Enterprises. By August 1977, when Elvis died, the foundation had donated $3 million. The woman who called that night never called again. The phone company confirmed what everyone suspected. No call had come through the hotel switchboard to Elvis's dressing room that night. The phone that rang, that Red West answered, that Elvis spoke into for 3 hours, had technically never received a call. Elvis performed 8 more shows in Vegas after that night. Every single one, he would stop mid-set, look into the audience, and say something that made no sense to anyone except him. This one is for JD. The notebook Elvis wrote in the desert that night was found in his bathroom at Graceland the day he died. The last entry, written in shaking handwriting, said, Jesse, I am coming. And this time, I will not let them separate us. The last 8 months of Elvis Presley's life make sense only if you know about that December night in Vegas. Every strange decision, every mysterious donation, every moment he stood on stage and seemed to be singing to someone who was not there. January 1977, Elvis went back to Mississippi for the first time in years, not to perform. Not for publicity. He drove alone to Jackson at 3 in the morning and spent 4 hours in a cemetery talking to a concrete mark. The groundskeeper found him there at dawn, having built a small pile of rocks on the grave. 7 rocks, one for each decade Jesse never got to live. He started changing his concerts in ways that baffled everyone. In the middle of sold-out shows, he would stop and talk about twins, how they could feel each other's pain across miles, how losing a twin was like losing half your soul. Audiences thought it was about grief. They had no idea it was about guilt. The pills got worse after December, not because Elvis was escaping pain, but because he was chasing something. He told Linda Thompson he needed to dream more. The pills helped him dream. And in his dreams, he said, Jesse was whole, walking, talking, singing harmony on every song Elvis had ever recorded alone. Larry Geller, Elvis's hairdresser and spiritual advisor, noticed the books Elvis was reading changed completely. No more philosophy or religion. Now it was all about medical conditions. Cerebral palsy, hydrocephalus, developmental disabilities. Elvis would sit for hours with medical textbooks, studying conditions Jesse might have had, treatments that did not exist in 1935, but could have saved him. If he had been born now, Elvis said one night, staring at a photograph of himself, seeing Jesse in his own reflection, he would have lived. Maybe not normal, but alive. Part of something. Part of us. The donations became an obsession. Not just money to institutions. Elvis started showing up at facilities for disabled children across Tennessee and Mississippi. No cameras. No publicity. He would sit with children who could not speak, holding their hands, humming melodies only he and they could hear. The staff would find him crying in parking lots afterward, but he kept coming back. Charlie Hodge watched Elvis write letters that never got mailed. Hundreds of them, all addressed to Jesse Garon Presley, general delivery. In them, Elvis told his twin about every concert, every record, every moment of the life Jesse should have shared. He apologized over and over for not knowing, for not sensing Jesse was alive somewhere, suffering. The relationship with Vernon turned into something poisonous. They would be in the same room at Graceland for family gatherings, but Elvis would look through his father like he was made of glass. Vernon aged 10 years in those 8 months. His hands shook constantly. He started drinking, something he had never done before. He would call Joe Esposito at all hours, begging Joe to ask Elvis for forgiveness. I was 20 years old, Vernon would say, words slurred with whiskey and regret. 20 years old and scared. The doctor said Jesse would never be nothing but a vegetable. How was I supposed to know he would understand music? And how was I supposed to know he would say brother when he died? But Elvis never forgave. Not because he could not, because forgiving Vernon would mean accepting that Jesse's suffering had an explanation, a reason, a logic, and Elvis needed it to remain what it was: senseless, cruel. The kind of mistake that destroys everything it touches, including the people who survive it. In May 1977, Elvis did something that made no sense to anyone until after his death. He legally changed his middle name. Not in public, not officially, but in a private document filed with his lawyer, Elvis Aaron Presley became Elvis Jesse Presley. He never told anyone except the lawyer, who was instructed to reveal it only after both Elvis and Vernon were dead. The concerts got harder to watch. Elvis would forget lyrics to songs he had sung 1,000 times, but then remember every word of obscure gospel hymns his mother sang when he was 3. He would call out to Jesse from the stage, asking if he liked this song or that one. Audiences thought it was part of the show. The Memphis Mafia knew better. June 16, 1977, Elvis gave his last concert. Indianapolis, Market Square Arena, 20,000 people. But the moment everyone remembers was not planned. During Can't Help Falling in Love, Elvis stopped singing and spoke directly to the audience, but really to someone else entirely.
I want you all to know something.
Every single one of us has someone we failed, someone we should have saved and did not. Someone whose name we carry like a stone in our chest. I carry mine. His name was Jesse. He was my brother. And if there is a heaven, if there is any justice in this universe or the next, he is whole now. Perfect, the way he always should have been. The audience applauded, thinking it was about his stillborn twin. They could not know Elvis was confessing to 20,000 strangers what he could not tell his father, that knowing Jesse had lived and died alone was killing him faster than any drug ever could. August 15, 1977, Elvis's last full day alive. He spent it doing 3 things. First, he visited his mother's grave at Graceland, talking to her for 2 hours while the security guard stood far enough away not to hear. Second, he made a phone call to Dorothy Hutchinson, thanking her for telling the truth, even though the truth destroyed everything. Third, he wrote one last letter to Jesse. That letter was found clutched in Elvis's hand when they discovered his body on the bathroom floor. It was only 5 words long. I am coming home, brother. The autopsy showed levels of 14 different drugs in Elvis's system. But what it did not show, what no medical examination could reveal, was that Elvis Presley had been dying since December 19, 1976. The phone call that might have been his dead mother, that might have been a cruel hoax, that might have been his own breaking mind, creating what he needed to hear, had started a countdown only he could hear. After Elvis died, investigators tried to trace the woman who called that night. They found nothing, no evidence she existed. The hotel phone showed no incoming calls. The Memphis Mafia members who were there gave conflicting accounts. Some said the phone never rang at all, that Elvis had been talking to dial tone. Others swore they heard a woman's voice, but the strangest discovery came in 1982 when Graceland was opened to the public. Workers renovating Elvis's bedroom found something hidden in the wall behind his headboard. 17 pages of medical records from the Mississippi State Hospital for the Feeble-Minded. Patient name, John Davidson. Birth date, January 8, 1935. Death date, February 15, 1952. And at the bottom, in handwriting that looked exactly like Elvis's mother's, Jesse Garin Presley, my baby. Both my babies. The records were authenticated as genuine. From 1935, which meant either Gladys had known all along and hidden them, or someone else had placed them there for Elvis to find. He had slept inches from those papers every night, never knowing they were there, never knowing the proof he desperately wanted was hiding in his own wall. Vernon Presley died June 26, 1979, never having reconciled with his son's memory. His last words, according to the nurse, were, "Tell Jesse I am sorry." She thought he was confused, talking about Elvis's stillborn twin. She had no way of knowing Vernon was apologizing to the son he threw away for $40, the son whose ghost destroyed his living brother, the son whose name became a curse that followed the Presley family to their graves. Some secrets are too heavy for the living to carry. They wait for death to tell their truth. Elvis learned this on December 19, 1976, when a phone that could not ring rang anyway. When a woman who could not exist told him things she could not know, when the brother he mourned for 42 years turned out to have mourned him back for 17. Was it really Gladys calling from beyond? Or was it Elvis's mind finally breaking under the weight of fame, pills, and a lifetime of survivor's guilt? Does it matter? The truth Elvis learned that night, whether from the dead or from his own fractured psyche, was real enough to kill him in 8 months. Some ghosts do not need to be real to haunt you. They just need you to believe. And Elvis believed with every cell in his body that Jesse had lived, suffered, and died calling his name. What would you do with that knowledge? How would you live? How could you live? Elvis showed us the answer. You do not. You spend 8 months saying goodbye, then you follow your brother home.